Hey everybody, today I am here with a guitar player, musician, writer, singer, Chris Foster. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
Um, so, so I guess let's start with this, and this is kind of leading into my first question. So I met you at was it your 25 years or 30 or what was it called?
It was my 25th year anniversary concert.
Yeah, that was really neat, man. That was a really thanks for inviting me to come play for that. That was a really neat event. Tell us a little bit about that event, just your feelings about it, and
Well, started thinking about how many gigs I had done in my life, and then I've added up maybe close to about 5,000 gigs that I've done.
wow.
And but then I really realized that when I first became a professional musician, there was a specific date that happened, and that was May 17th of 1992.
Mm.
And I thought, well, why don't I celebrate, this 25-year anniversary of being in the music business, um, and so I found a venue and got the band together and everything, and decided to just have a really good celebration, because you're always told throughout your life, music is such a hard road to hoe, and I thought, well, it's really no harder than any other road. You just have to hoe it. You have to work it. You can't expect uh, things to fall out of the sky unless you go work for them. And so this is not only a passion and but it's a career. It's a job, and you have to work your job. There's no business out there worth its salt that somebody didn't put their blood, sweat, and tears into. And so I wanted to celebrate the fact that I had made it for 25 years as a professional musician, and it's for the most part been my sole income. Not always. I've done other things on the side, but primarily for 25 years, music has been my bread and butter. And I wanted to celebrate that and prove to people that yes, this can be a viable income.
Oh yeah, that and I think there's a lot of us that would love to have that path of having it be our primary income and just be in it for that long and still love it. And I mean that's pretty amazing. But I love what you said, that we like to pretend that, I think as musicians we like to pretend that all these other fields are like so much easier to get into, and it's so much easier, but I kind of agree with you on that. I mean, it's not any different than anything else in a weird way.
You take a general contractor who wants to start building houses or decks. He's got to find his market. He's got to find people who want to buy his services. Being a musician really is no different to me. I have to find people who want to buy my services, and I have to create an environment that makes it easy for them to buy my services, and so that's how I've approached the business, more from a business mindset than the idea, if I need to get discovered and giving my power away to some entity that I don't even know. It's like I'm gonna go out there and allow somebody to discover me, and then be able to take me or leave me or manipulate me. I thought, no, I want to be the captain of my own ship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I talk about that all the time with a lot of other musicians, about the whole entire business side of music is really fascinating to me, because it's something I suck at, and we're all, I mean, a lot of us are really good players or whatever, and that's where we put our focus, but we never talk about what organizational skills and like kind of goal setting mindset that it takes to be in the music business for 25 years. I mean, really, like you just said, making a decision that I want to be in charge of my own everything when it comes to my career. I mean, I know a lot. I think just a lot of musicians don't think about that as much as they should.
and I think there a lot of them I don't want to throw my fellow musicians under the bus. A lot of them are very inwardly focused. And when you are in business and you're doing business with other people, there has to be a mutual benefit. And so if you're a heavy metal band and you go into an Italian restaurant and you say, I want to play for you, it probably is not going to work because you have a different agenda, you have a different need. And so I think part of the remedy or the recipe for success is learning what your gifts are, and then finding the venues that will best allow you to express your gifts and allow them to benefit from what you do. So many of my gigs are places that I've created that there's been nobody playing there before me. So you have to think in terms of, this is what I do, where would this best fit? And then you go and you present yourself, and then if you're good and well and they like you, then you develop a relationship and you can get steady gigs. And if you want to impose like, well, this is what we do, this is who we are, and you're not really given room for any venue to say, well, you know, and I think it all starts too with like, where are you coming from? Are you trying to be an artist that wants to be, you know, heard on the radio or the record, or are you trying to be a musician entertainer that entertains people on a local level? I think maybe you can be both, but I think there has to be some distinctions between, you know, where you're going, and you know why and why you're going there. I never chased stardom. You know, it was never anything in my body that said I need to go to Nashville to be discovered. To me, it just was like rolling the dice. To me, I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to sleep in my own bed at night and not be bothered by, you know, press and people who wanted to, you know, what color T-shirt I had on or something. I mean, I don't, you know, that to me is not fun. You know, and everybody wants a piece of you. Then, you know, I just want to be a musician and enjoy my life and have a good time and make a living and be happy with it. And I am.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's great, man. I mean, a couple of things you said that were interesting there. I mean, one that was sort of, I guess, also what you're kind of talking about, like setting goals. You know, I mean, you're saying I know this is not my goal. Being on the road or going to Nashville, maybe, you know, that's not I mean, you just said it, right? It's not your priority or whatever, and that's really good to notice. I think I can say from my own experience that I've struggled with that a little bit in a lot of different ways. I think, like, musically, trying to find my niche a little bit has been tricky because I like so many different kinds of music, and especially like jazz wise or whatever, I was really behind the ball game because I've been in orchestra forever, and all these other guys have been in jazz band, you know, so they're just ahead of me, like, jazz wise. Now I think that's really fun to play stuff like that, but I realized that, like you just said, my bread and butter is really playing, you know, maybe country or bluesy kind of stuff, maybe rock, classical, you know, and so even the genre wise, like, kind of finding my niche, I know for myself has been a little bit of a struggle. And do you have you felt about that, like, on your end? Because I know you like to play a lot of different kinds of music. Has that how has that been for you, like just playing wise and, like, learning different styles of music? Has that been a challenge for you, or has it just been really, really natural, or did you make that into your thing of doing a lot of different kinds of stuff? Or
well, it sort of was born out of necessity. I used to live in Florida, and I had a number of different entertainment agents that would call me and say, we need a guitarist that does this. And I would say, well, I guess I'm that guitarist this week. And then I'd go out and I would woodshed, and I would, you know, try to, you know, play some And that's how I basically learned how to play the classical pieces, is because I'm not really a classical player, and I don't want to insult any classical guitarist that might listen to this that thinks that I tell you right now I'm not a classical guitarist, but I muddled my way through some classical songs because I realized this is what people want for a wedding and things like that, and so I provide a service, and that is what the service that they need, and so I need to diversify. It's and that is one of the ways that I've gotten so used to playing different styles. I mean, I can play several classical pieces, and I probably play them okay, but is my hand position going to be completely correct? Am I going to, is my thumb going to be in the right place on the neck or whatever? Is my positioning of the, where I play the song going to be? I don't care about none of that. All I care about is what comes out of the guitar and if the client's happy. That's where the rubber meets the road for me. So
the Pavarotti of the guitar is like rolling in his grave and stuff. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh no, your hand position. Oh no.
Yeah, he's not using a
Screw those
footstool.
guys.
He's using a strap, not a footstool.
Right. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
It's. But I appreciate those guys. I think one of the finest guitarist I've heard in Kansas City as far as classical goes, Doug Neat. I mean, he's just a brilliant guitarist. I've never really met him personally. I've seen his videos, and I'm just so impressed. Also, Bo Bledsoe is another tremendous guitarist that I have great admiration for. They're both just really, to me, top shelf guitarists. I look at myself as using guitar as a tool to please a client. And so I'm a guitarist in that sense, but I'm more into customer service than I am, music purity.
Oh yeah, I hear you on that. So to get a little bit technical here, so kind of explain to people a little bit of the difference, like for example, of the style that you would do playing rock, and then the style you would do playing that classical. I mean, the classical is more like finger style stuff, right?
Yeah, it's more, and then. I do a lot of acoustic rock. Although I've been playing the guitar for 40 plus years, I don't even have an electric guitar. So a lot of guys are like, "What? You don't even have?" I don't. I don't ever play one. I don't ever have a desire to play one. I've had them in the past, and I've given them away. I just never played them.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, So when I play rock, it's typically, a lot of strumming.
Sure.
Just a lot of, just whatever the beat is. And there's my phone. I need to silence it. So.
Well,
yeah.
But so then there's another question. So when you're doing, are you typically doing a lot of rhythm on gigs in general? Are you doing a lot of lead playing, or like what do you like try to make sure to hire out for a lead guy, or how do you do that kind of
no,
stuff?
if I'm doing a band gig, and if I have the accompaniment like a pianist or even a bassist, I typically won't hire another guitar player.
Yeah.
I'm proficient enough in lead to be able to do that, but not.
So you do lead stuff.
Yeah, I do lead. I mean, and there again, there's guys out there that would probably, chuckle at the. There's real shredders out there that are real lead players.
Oh yeah. No, that's cool, man. And then, because that's another thing that it's always funny to me when you have so a band like the Allman Brothers cracks me up. They have like 2 drummers, 3 guitar players, 2 keyboardists. I'm just like, really, guys? Because it just feels like a lot of times when you're in the band, they're all clashing on each other. A lot of times, like you got you got the rhythm and then lead guitar and then a piano and then even another organ or a piano, and like it always feels like everybody's clashing on each other, and and like what so like what I would tell, especially if we have two guitarists in a band, and then we have like okay, so here's an example. If you have like a piano and a guitar in a band, I would tell like the guitar to comp with like single note line kind of stuff, and then have the piano do chords, or the opposite way, where they do really sparse little chords and then the guy is straight strumming, so they can, all the stuff can cut through. Have you dealt with that a lot with different musicians, like comping and stuff, of people like getting in each other's way?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to deal with, and there's players that I've played with that I realize that I'm not a good fit with. They're just so naturally wired to be, and mostly pianists, because I rarely play with another guitarist unless it's just me and another guitarist.
Right. So that's like stripped down like crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, it's like,
or...
okay, we're doing, a really cool thing. Sort of like just basically trading licks.
Right.
Play something, but normally when I have a band, it's been mostly a keyboard player, and there's some keyboard players that I've worked with that just play all over you, and I don't really blame them. It's what they're used to doing. They're normally in a band where they are the melody, they are the rhythm, they're everything, and some of them are not sensitive to having a guitarist in the band, and some of them know exactly what to do. They know their role and realize that they don't have to carry the whole thing.
Right.
And so over the years, I've had some really good keyboard players and some not so, in all the keyboard players are really good, but not a good fit.
Sure, yeah.
So,
we've talked about that typical idea on the show a lot with a lot of people, because it's one of my general pet peeves, of especially like in open jams and stuff, when people are just playing over you like crazy, and so I'm always curious to ask people about that, because definitely in like country and blues, for example, they have a lot of those kind of call and answer kinds of things. You sing, and then there's the little space, sing the space, and so I'm always making sure that I put myself in that little space as a violinist, and then I back the hell off, and then I put in, and then I'm off, and in and out. And so, I don't know if I do it all the time, but I know 100% that I'm thinking that way. I'm trying to like put a little perfect little spot, and a perfect riff, and it is annoying when keyboard players are just barreling over everyone. It is kind of
and sometimes less is more. Less can be a lot more tasteful, a lot more colorful. The other thing that annoys me probably even more than keyboard players are drummers who are just, just cannot seem to not play a fill.
Fill, and everything.
And I mean, I've had a couple of nightmares with that. More nightmares with drummers than I have with keyboard players. Right. And but I've had some really fantastic drummers that, are in the pocket and don't overplay, know exactly what they're doing, know the tunes. And some that I have burned their card after the gig.
And to me, I always think of that as the general area of etiquette, general music etiquette, and then you're all up here, he's behind, and the drummer's sitting like this. Yeah. He's not looking up. He does not, you're not able to cue him. He's playing over everybody. His volume is through the roof, and it needs to be down here, and everybody, it's not just drummers, but like that stuff really drives me nuts, playing with people that don't have.
Yeah. And, it's so funny. We're talking so much about bands. I mean, so much of what I do is solo. I don't, I don't really deal with bands much.
So talk about that. Talk about, playing solo gigs.
Yeah, I just it's a lot of work I've had a band before. Probably the most successful band I had was probably about 15 years ago. We were together for about 5 years, and we put out a couple of CDs, and love those guys. But I moved away from the area, and so our natural connection was broken when I did that. And I tried to get a band together when I came here to the Kansas City area, and it just, I don't know if it was me, it just didn't feel the same. It wasn't the same kind of energy. I just didn't have the same kind of deep connection that I had developed with the people that I had before. And there's several musicians that I really have liked and enjoyed playing with. One of them you've had on your show, Jim Cavanaugh. He's a fine drummer and an even better guy. Really like Jim a lot. And he's always been very complimentary of me and very supportive of me in a lot of ways. You know, and I've had some good moments with other players as well. Even recently, my son has become a full-time musician, and he plays saxophone. So I've had some fun with that. But, you know, I think when I came here, I was sort of maybe a little depressed. I moved here from Florida about 13 years ago and sort of had a really good band going, but I just needed a change in life, and the band went with it. And so it was like trying to recreate Disney World again. You know, it just wasn't as fun, as exciting, and it was going to take a lot more work than I wasn't as enthused to do it as I was originally.
Right. So so you were talking about solo gigs as opposed to band gigs. What are some challenges of playing solo? Because there's got to be some other challenges that are just different from the band. Is there anything you like more about solo or don't like more, or like, you can answer that however you want, I guess.
Solo, I don't have to really worry about what next song I play or if somebody's ready. So that's an advantage. Also, solo in some ways can be more financially lucrative. You know, let's say if a club wants to hire you and they only have a budget of so much, they say, well, this is what we can pay you. Do you want to split it 3 ways or 1 way? You know, you do the math. You know? So I think it's simpler and it's easier, and I've done it so much that it's like I can do it in my sleep. And I don't have to worry. I know where all my settings are. I know, you know, I only need this much equipment. I don't have to worry about, did I get a microphone for this guy, or do I need a mic stand for this person?
So much less stress, it sounds like.
It's a lot less stress. It really is for me. But some guys love that, and they love the camaraderie, and I like the camaraderie too. I do like the camaraderie, but I think that it would, unless I had if I was doing a lot of corporate parties or things like that, I'd probably be more apt to develop a band. That's a market that I was really heavy into in Florida. I had a lot of corporate clients. Here, not so much, or not. I've just not found that inroad, and mainly I don't think I've looked for it as hard either.
Right.
You know, so
I think it's there. I hear some people doing some gigs like that, but it may not be just the amount of what you're used to in Florida.
I was doing with my band probably 75 to 100 gigs a year.
Yeah, that's a good number of gigs.
And for a local band.
Oh, right.
And we were doing a lot of hotels. People would come down for conferences and things like that, and we'd go out and do country clubs and things of that nature, and do Valentine's dances and weddings, and we stayed quite busy. And now most of the weddings I do, I'm just the guitarist for the ceremony and the cocktail reception, and I'm happy with that. I'm 2 hours and I'm home.
Yeah, weddings always crack me up because, like, even as a string quartet or something, you come in there and they say it's 35 something minutes before the thing, but it's usually like 25, and then and then they're telling you, okay, we want another 20 after when they leave, and it's usually like 7. People are out the door, and then you get paid, and then you leave. It's just like it's like ripping them off or something, But it's usually a pretty, it's stressful because there's a lot riding on it. Everybody is going to remember if you make a massive mistake. For the rest of their lives, they're going to remember because this was like a special day, and it's sort of stressful, but it's not, it's not stressful at all. So those can be, and then you can get like a bridezilla, and that's just buckets of fun. But
yeah, that's and I've had to fire some clients.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to sometimes stand your ground and not be a jerk about it, but like I remember this one wedding I did, and this lady was insistent that she come and see me, and so we had this band that performed at a country club, as this is down in Florida. We had a band, and she says, I want to come hear you, and I said, well, this is a Valentine's Day dance, and I said, I'll see if I can get you special permission to poke your head in the door. Well, the country club went out of their way, and they allowed her to come in. She didn't dine. She just sort of sat off the side room and listened to the band. And then after she was just so hyper picky. I mean, just real particular.
Yeah.
And so then after she heard the band for an hour, she emails me the next day and she goes, can you still provide me some references? And I'm like, I wrote her back and I said, I'll let my band's performance speak for itself. You'll need to find another band.
Yeah.
And I'll let her go.
Yeah.
And I gave her some names of some bands that I thought she might like, but I wasn't going to deal with her anymore. It's like, it didn't have to be nasty or mean, but it was like, if you're not sold by after you heard my band, then I'm not going to waste any more time on this client. Go away.
Right.
Go away. And
just wondering if she. I'm really fascinated with psychology. If she wanted to kind of manipulate the situation more, and so you already said that she was trying to be picky and stuff. Is she just making you go through hoops, or it's hard to say, I guess.
I think it had more to do with if psychologically. I think in that particular market, it's how everything appeared to everybody else. And so it's like, would people talk about this wedding, amongst themselves? That's sort of the mentality that I got. It's like, how does it look? Like, I'm not part of that game. If you don't think I'm playing all of these, these country clubs where, we're doing Valentine's dances, New Year's Eve dances, Christmas stuff,
Right.
and if it's not good enough, I'm not gonna, But that's you have to. I've always treated it like a business. I had contracts that I use, and also one of the other things in terms of promoting yourself is being engaged in the business community, not just the music community. I belong to chambers of commerces. I go to chambers of commerce meetings. I let them know that I am in the music business.
Yeah.
If you need music services, this is who you come to. This is who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I do. It pays off.
That's a really good idea. That's a really great idea.
And I am always the only musician in those chambers of commerce. It's like, they're not willing to invest in that because they see it as an expense. And it really is an investment. It's not only an investment, monetarily that you're going to make back probably in the year, but it's an investment. You've now put yourself in partnership with, people who are business people who have resources, who are the movers and shakers in your communities that do put the events on and do. Have open houses and do have grand openings and things like that. And it's a natural thing to think, well, I could be a part of that, and I'm the only one in all of the chambers that I belong to. I'm the only musician.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's interesting because I would have never thought to do that. I mean, that's a great piece of advice because the thing that popped in my head was like even they were talking about living in this big subdivision, and the one of the people they know in the subdivision is like the son or something of somebody who owns a business, and so that's like their now neighborhood hangout because he knows everybody in the subdivision. Or when you have like a small town, we have our neighborhood musician or something, and then everybody knows them, but they're the only ones. Like you were just saying, you're the only one in this little group that. And so now you've got this huge connection into all these people that none of the other musicians are talking to because you're the only one they know, and you're right. We do have a problem with that of like kind of accidentally staying in our little music community and accidentally never getting out to a whole lot of other people
yeah.
and yeah.
And I can certainly. I know you told me before we started taping about you had conversations about club owners and things like that. I certainly have had, but I think if you treat yourself as a CEO of your music business, then you go in there with a different mindset of you're not just looking for scraps out the back door. You are a professional. You present yourself professionally. This is what I do. This is who I am. And you have to be willing to say, this isn't the right place for me. That, it's not get a gig at all cost. It's is this the right situation for me? And if it's not, then just say, hey, best of luck to you. No problem. I'm probably not the guy that's going to go in and rock a biker bar. It's not. I don't have tattoos. I don't even ride a Harley, or I don't, it's not who I am. It's not what I look like.
Right.
So it's not my people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. I totally relate to that. When I tried to run my little rock band a couple years ago, I felt that desperateness that you're talking about of coming in and trying to, if they gave me anything, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, and that, especially money wise, I mean, they'd come in and we can only give you 4 cents for this gig, and so do you want it? And then I'd be like, oh, a gig, yeah, okay, and I there's a bunch of times where I probably should have been okay with walking away from it, but because it was a gig, I wanted it, and I needed to have more courage to walk away from that and not just take anything. And I wish at the time I would have had more of that mentality and been okay with walking away, because
I think if you don't demand respect from yourself, you can't expect anybody else to. And so I think part of that is saying, I am worth this much. It's hard to put a dollar and cents on art, no matter what it is. But you have to say, what do I, and it goes back to goal setting, what is it that I want to make? How much do I want to make, and how do I do that? And what is the business model for me that this is going to...
All right, sorry about that, guys. We had a little miscue with the video camera. So getting back to, you have written quite a few albums yourself, and I was pretty impressed even at your concert, all the different kinds of styles that you've written. And so what are some fun things that you find about writing, or things that are challenges about writing music for you?
For me, of course, writing is an expression, so that's fun. Having ideas that sort of come out of your mind and can provoke thought in others is another wonderful feeling about writing. And I think, there's been times where I've written a song that where I've written like 2 songs and didn't like this part of that one, I liked this part of the other ones, and then I've put them together and made one song. One song in particular that is my Alamorada song on my Kiowaso CD. The other ways I write songs too are, taking subject. You take a subject like a tree or something of that nature, and you can write down ideas of what you think of a tree, like tall branches, leaves, blooms, springtime, falling leaves, gold color leaves, whatever the case is, yard. And then you take all of those thoughts and not without trying to rhyme them, and then you can make, see what you're trying to say, and you have all of these characteristics and these ideas about the tree that will work to help support the song. I did that a lot with some of my songs, and like in particular, I have a song I wrote about the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, and you can find it on YouTube. And I did it like that. I wrote all of these characteristics about a hurricane and what it was like, and then it took me about a month to write that song. So it can be fun, it can be entertaining and interesting. It also requires, I think, if you want to keep diligent at it, it requires a little bit of discipline, which sometimes I lack. I need to be a little bit more, regimented in saying and goal oriented in writing songs, or giving myself some homework to do.
Right. Yeah, two things you said that was interesting there. One, I totally can relate to the like piecing together part. I mean, that's more like arranging or something. You could look at it like that way, but that's the part that I find fun. Is the piecing together, like you were talking about, taking two really mildly similar songs, and then you're like, oh, wait a second, no, if I put those together, it's over. And that happens to me a lot, where I'll have three big chord progressions or something that are all like versions of 2-5-1s or something, and I'm like, dude, this is perfect. I've got like a verse, chorus, bridge right here. If I put all these together, boom. And I wasn't even planning on them being in the same song, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Or I think I'm being all different with myself, or I'll come up with like 3 different riffs or something, like over 6 months, and then I'll realize, man, this is like the same riff. Like I think I'm all unique and stuff, but then when I play them all together, I'm like, this would actually work perfect in the same song because they're so similar, and I think I'm coming up with all this different stuff. But the piecing stuff together is really fun to me. Because my tunes that I'm writing they're not just verse, chorus, bridge style songs. They're very, they're more like prog rock kind of songs, where they might be even 10 minutes long, and more like a classical piece where they have like section, and so the mapping out of this needs to go before that, and that needs to, I don't know if you find that fun, but that's like the funnest part for me. It's not even coming up with the riff is fun. It's the mapping all the thing out. Yeah, I don't know, but
being creative is fun in general. So
right.
Whatever part that you enjoy is always good.
Go right, yeah.
Sometimes I really love lyric writing, and sometimes I really love music writing.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the mood and the moment.
Yeah, I have a lot of trouble with lyrics. I have a lot. I feel very comfortable doing the music part of it, and I feel strong at doing the music part. But what is because you mentioned a style that you said about. Thinking about like your tree analogy of all the different things that you could like talk about, and then you figure out what you want to use out of that, like that's like an awesome and crazy way to write for me, because I wouldn't have ever thought to do that. It's not bad, it's great, because I just didn't, I wouldn't have thought about that.
I wish it was my original idea. But it is a really cool idea, and it does help people gather their thoughts, because if you think about it. The other thing I wanted to say too about writing music is, I think, when I was early on in my career, and the idea of, quote, being discovered was still a common, thread that ran through my brain, like, who's going to discover me? And this is, you have to realize, being in business for 25 years, these are things that I've learned over time. This wasn't something that I just started with. I started out with, hey, I'm going to be a musician, and maybe one day, blah 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 blah. And then as things evolved, I realized, well, I really don't care about going to Nashville, or I really, don't care about this. And one of the realizations that I had when I came on my third CD was I wasn't really concerned about keeping it in a particular genre. I was more interested in the story behind the CD than I was if it was going to fit into somebody's, oh, he's a folk artist.
Right.
Oh, he's a jazz artist.
Categories,
he does reggae, or he does rock. I think that for a writer, if you're writing, you should just write and let it be who you are. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't put yourself as a folk artist if you've written a rock song and think, oh, you can't write a rock song because you're a folk artist. I think that's just and maybe you have a propensity to be a certain type of artist.
Right.
Like certainly I'm probably more of like a singer-songwriter, pop rock kind of guy.
Right.
If I had to narrow myself down to.
That still can be pretty broad with stuff, because I mean, like your Latin stuff like fits right into that wheelhouse, right? I mean, on a acoustic guitar, I mean, you could fit right into that.
Probably
right?
musically, the artist I'm closest to who's done a lot of diverse things is Dan Fogelberg. Although he wasn't my biggest inspiration, it just musically, I think he had a song called Guitar Etude Number 3 or something like that. Really cool song he did with Tim Weisberg. And it was a very Latin piece. He's done some other country stuff. He's done some, of course, ballads, and he's done some rock stuff. I think that I would probably more closely resemble him than anybody. However, I think my style sounds a little bit more like John Denver when it comes to singer-songwriter.
What about maybe like a James Taylor or something? Would that be, because he actually does some Latin stuff too. I mean, not Latin, but he has some. Don't Let Me Be Lonely Tonight kind of has a Latin-y flavor, but anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean it does a little bit. I think more when I'm thinking, I was so influenced by the music of Antonio Carlos Jobim that I'm thinking more sambas and bossa novas.
His isn't, his
is not like that. It does have a little bit more percussiveness in it. It's got some bongos, maybe some congas and things like that.
James Taylor's very poppy. I mean, he is not.
And I love James Taylor.
Oh, sure, me too.
No problem there with James. I love James. I sing a lot of his stuff.
But anyway,
But I think the other fun thing I've done though is I have some friends that I've covered their songs.
How do you like doing that?
Love it.
Yeah.
I think if there's a great song, it doesn't have to come off the radio. There was one song that I do fairly frequently. It's a song called Wishful Thinking, and it was written by a guy who was a street musician in Norway. I just really loved the song. He had it. He was playing there on the street, and I bought his tape, and I was like, I like this song. I even reached out to him, and I want to re-record it. Eventually, I'll re-record that song because I love it so much.
That's neat. That's a fun story. Yeah.
And because we're all artists. It doesn't matter what rung on the ladder we are. We're all artists, and whether I'm making gajillion bucks a year or 10, I'm still on that same ladder.
Oh yeah.
And so I respect other artists and the work, and I have no problems putting my friends' songs into shows. And it doesn't have to always be about me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So you talked about the pigeon, like writing wise, pigeonholing yourself into a certain kind of thing, and the one question that I think I was always rolling in my head when I did my albums is the argument between what I wanted to do and really the audience I think a lot of people have that kind of dilemma in themselves where they realize that they want to write this way, and they realize that sometimes, especially somebody like a record producer, they're like, we can't sell that. What is this? And they want you to kind of, come into this realm of, and so for example, with me, it was this balance between wanting to do, like, for example, wanting to do 7 to 10 minute songs, as opposed to maybe cutting down a couple sections out of them and realizing that there are some prog rock fans that might like this a lot. This is right in their wheelhouse, but there's a whole bunch of other people that are back to talking with their friends at this bar, because they're not paying attention. It's just too long. It's now your background music, Or I guess another example might be trying to think about always being as tasteful as you can, like with your licks or your chords or whatever, and that would be like one way you could make it more accessible to the public. But then the, like, again, amount of time per song or the amount of sections might be more musical heady, people that are like, looking at musician for musician's sake. And can you talk about that with the catering?
I think it depends on what your objective is with the gig or with the project. When you were talking about that, it reminded me of the story of Eva Cassidy. And I don't know if you know that artist, but if you're listening and you've never heard of Eva Cassidy, it is a heartbreaking story of an incredible artist that was discovered posthumously. Her voice is one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard in my life, but she was someone who did not fit particularly into one specific genre. And Blue Note wanted to sign her really bad, but they wouldn't because she was all of this. And so she goes, that's okay. And when Blue Note found out that she was dying of cancer, the record guy who had rejected her called her and actually bawled his eyes out on the phone because he felt sorry that he didn't give her that chance.
Wow.
I think that is so typical of a business part of music. And you have to decide what your business is. If your business is to write songs and to be creative, and you're not necessarily concerned about, if it sells or then you can do anything you want.
Right. Yeah.
Or if you're in a club and you want to entertain people, or do you want to be expressive? You have to ask yourself that question. So are you more concerned about people listening to you in a club or not? If not, then play what you want and play it for as long as you want. If you're wanting their attention, then you might have to say, well, this is what the audience wants, and how will that benefit me? And again, it's just a business. You have to sort of look at whatever it is. I took some time off from music at one time to only do original music. I mean, I'm mostly a cover artist, but I said, I really just want to focus on my original music. And I did that for about a year. Everywhere I played, I only played original music. And it's a different world, and one that I found I liked playing cover songs.
Yeah, right.
I enjoyed them. I sing them, and other people sing them, and I found it was a better tool for me to relate to people.
Oh yeah.
And so that just worked for me.
Oh yeah.
But some people will never play cover songs.
Right.
They will only play original songs, and if they do a cover, it is just a song that is near and dear to their heart for whatever reason. But they just wouldn't go out and do a gig for 4 hours of playing other people's music. It just is not going to happen.
Yeah, I know that when I was a lot younger, like in college, for example, I would definitely try to have this attitude that, you know, oh, I'm gonna play this jazz, I'm only gonna do originals, you know, I'm gonna have so much integrity, that, you know, I was being an idiot, you know, idiot college kid. And then I finally one day was like, wait a second, I have like 500 cover CDs in my CD player right now. I actually love cover tunes. Why am I having all this? Why am I pretending that I'm going to have all this integrity and stuff? I love Allman Brothers and Pink Floyd and Red Hot Chili Peppers and all these bands. You know, I actually love all this music. Why am I pretending that I'm better than that or something? I'm bigger than that. You know, that's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
it really helped my brain to get into cover tune mode a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you can take a cover and make it your own, like I do a really cool version of I Can See Clearly Now. It's completely different.
Oh yeah.
Than, you know, the dun 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 dun. You know, I completely just threw that out the window.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I really rearranged the song so you can have some creativity with cover songs.
Sure.
That I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and he like with the fingerstyle stuff that I do, especially the jazz standards, playing your own arrangements to them, you know, it can really be beautiful, and it can appease your need to be creative with the idea of playing stuff that people are familiar with.
Right. Yeah. That's a good balance.
Yeah,
There,
it's a good balance, and I've had some fun with it. And sometimes I'll play original stuff too. I'll throw my own stuff out there just because I want to play it.
Yeah, that's cool.
No one's going to throw an egg at me, or at least I hope not.
Yeah,
No one else.
you hope so. Probably not at a country club.
Well, I'll tell you,
probably not gonna...
it reminded me of a funny thing. On the way to one of my first gigs ever, a bird crapped on my head. And they say that's a sign of good luck.
Yeah, maybe.
So I figured, well, it was all
He chose you.
Yeah, it's like...
That's funny.
But it's all uphill from there.
Yeah.
You know, it has been good luck. It's been a great career.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I feel very blessed by it.
That's great. Yeah. So wrapping up here, I mean, you already mentioned kind of that one. Do you have another I kind of like to end the show with this. Do you have another kind of moment in the music business that was ridiculous or awesome or that you'll never forget?
One
or many or however.
Well, one I'll never forget was I was playing this country club. It was a yacht club actually in Naples, Florida, and it was a Valentine's dance. Mm-hmm. And this was an elderly crowd. I mean, but they were very affluent. The yacht club, nonetheless.
Speaks for itself.
Yeah, it speaks for itself. But anyway, they loved our band and they had us there frequently. And so this particular dance, this lady walked up to the band and she goes, "I just love your music." And when she walked up, she was actually using a walker.
Yeah, sure.
I just love your music. And she started, like sort of dancing with her walker, and she's and I looked at her, and she just was like watching a slow motion movie. No. She went straight back, ass over tea kettle, legs up in the air, and I'm going, oh my God, this woman just fell completely backwards, and you know, and I'm trying really hard not to laugh, and I look over. And my drummer is doubled over.
Yeah.
He just can't even look at the situation. He's just playing, and my bass player had turned around, and he's pretending he's adjusting his amp, and he's just.
That is funny.
I can see his body just convulsing with laughter, and I'm sitting there going, I'm having to be the straight guy here. And I'm having to try to sing this song, and there's just no way it's happening. It was probably
that's funny. Yeah,
she was okay.
Yeah,
but
right, yeah.
Oh my God, we still talk about that. That was a good one.
Well, she probably had a couple, right? I mean, you know.
Oh, I'm not even sure if that was the case.
Yeah.
I think she just lost her balance.
Yeah.
But who knows? That might have been a factor. I didn't even think about that. But.
Yeah, that's always funny when you have to. When something happens and you have to go, well, all right, this is happening right in front of us right now.
Yes.
You know, I mean, or you're laughing hysterically, or you're sad, or I mean, having to deal with that on stage right now, and just like kind of hang on for dear life. I mean, those moments are just why you do gigs.
Another funny moment. This is a little personal, but I'll share this. My bass player that I used in Florida, great guy, great bass player, loved him. His name was Steve, and he was probably 5'4", 5'5". Wasn't necessarily a tall guy. And one day, our regular saxophone player could not play, and I hired a guy who had to be at least 6'5". And it just so happened that I had set the band up. I wasn't even thinking that I had put them right next to each other. and Steve comes up to me and he goes, is there any way I can move? And I'm like, why do you want to move? And he's like, well, I was like, sure. So I had to reset the band.
Yeah, that is funny.
And I put them on opposite ends of each other.
The last thing you want to deal with right now, really, right?
It's like,
He's like, you're solo.
Yeah. Just don't.
All right.
Just don't rest your drink on my head. Okay?
Yeah, that is funny, man. It's bad when it's like that bad. It's like 5'5" to 6.
Yeah, it was that drastic too.
That is.
He might have even been taller than that, but it was pretty drastic.
But that's the kind of silly stuff that happens at a gig where that is the number one reason right there to have your crap together. Have your just music together, know your music, because when a lady falls, or last minute when you need a battery, or your band, you got to switch your battery on your guitar, or your band needs you to move the whole stage around because of some silly thing, it's like always good to have your crap together so that you can have time to do that.
Oh, there's so many stories. There's the one where they had just fired their CEO. And we were playing this party, and it felt like a funeral.
Oh wow!
It was just, oh my God! That was terrible. It was
extremely awkward, right?
Yeah, we were. Well, let's have some fun. Let's dance, and everybody's just like.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Did you barrel through with the happy let's rock, or did you kind of just adjust to the room? And
you got to adjust.
Yeah.
You got to give them what they want.
Yeah.
They're paying you.
Right.
And you just sort of try to, just take it down a notch and say, okay, well, they're just not there. They're probably not going to dance. And I mean, because people said, well, we're going to talk here, and so they got up and things will be better going forward. It's
like wow.
Yeah, so whoa. Yeah. So at least they had an open bar.
they needed it, or didn't need it. However you want to. Yeah. That's funny, man.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the funny things. I mean, gosh, there's so many, but yeah. But
yeah, man. So
one thing I'll share with you before we leave is. I think the advice I would give, and I might have said this earlier, but is to find the places that fit you, and work in terms of business, and think of you have a product. Where's that product going to be available, or most accessible, or most successful, and approach it like that, and I think you'll find a lot more happiness and success.
Yeah, I like that, man. I do agree with you. I think a lot of people are forcing stuff a lot, and they have this idea of what they think is going to work, or what they think they're going to be good at, and they don't, they don't really find, first of all, actually what they're actually good at, and then they don't go really realistically do what you just did. Go real find where they're gonna fit the best, and definitely the just thinking less in terms of playing scales and more doing that. That's what we do a lot, is our technique, and we try to make it be a good musician, but there's all this other stuff that is really the reason why they're not big. Well, it has nothing to do with their talent level. It has to do with all this other.
And one of the ways I've learned over the years to combat that too is anytime I go play a new room, I audition. I actually will call them and say, you don't have to come hear me. I will come to you. I will set up. I'll do an hour and a half or whatever, complimentary on and off night. I'll do it normally on a Monday or Tuesday night. And if you feel I am suitable, and it'll give me a chance to read the room. If it's where I want to be, it'll give them a chance to hear me. If it's what they want. And I'll say, just throw me a meal or something like that. And almost every time they will, and almost every time, if I've scoped the room out right, I get the gig.
Yeah.
You know, but if not, then I can easily say, hey man, it's just, you know, I can walk away from it and no hard feelings. It's just not what's, you know, and there's been a few times where I've had to do that, but
that's setting what you just reminded me of is that's setting your expectations for them too of like not how big I am, but how professional this is going to be. You know, I'm trying, like you said, I'm trying to come like actually take this seriously right now. I'm going to go scope this room out, you know, and I'm showing you that I'm taking it, you know, I mean, I would think that that's kind of reminds me of the don't settle for kind of argument you were making earlier of just show that you're worth it. I'm a professional, you know, that's what I got out of that, what you just said. You know?
And I've had one guy that I did it for, audition, he says, I'm surprised you show up. No one's ever showed up for an audition before.
Yikes.
So it's like, you're the only one that's ever done that, you know, and followed through.
That's right. This is what you're going to get.
So I said, well, I told him, I said, it's because this is my profession and I take it serious.
Yeah, that's great.
You know, I'm not without flaws, or I don't have areas that I have areas that I can grow in for sure, but I think that the more you treat things with a business mind in terms of music, you're going to find yourself less frustrated with club owners.
That's a great piece of advice. Man.
Because everybody wants to make the club owner the evil guy, but they're the guy writing your check, and you have to find common respect.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I'll share with you as a last thought is, anytime I play a club for the first time, the next thing I do the next day is I send that club a thank you card.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, I have thank you cards that are from my music business and say thank you for the opportunity to play in your club.
That's a great. I know some people probably call up, say, hey, thanks for the gift. If they see him,
don't send an email.
Yeah,
don't send an email.
Yeah.
You handwrite the thank you card and you drop it in the mail, and it stands out. It does.
Yeah, wow, that's a great. I never would have thought to do that. That's awesome, man.
This person just gave you an opportunity to make money. Why wouldn't you thank him?
It's a whole different mindset of where you're going, you know.
So
do I thank them because they give me a gig, or do I deserve this gig? Right? You know what I mean? That's the mindset of these two different people, you know. Well, I deserve a gig because I'm me. Well, I don't know about that. You know, you wanna have a different attitude, like you said. You're thanking them for.
You don't have to be subservient. And the other thing too is, if it sends a message, if you have your own personal business thank you cards made up, and a business owner or a club owner gets it, he's going to know you take your business serious. You went so far as to have your own thank you cards made up.
Yeah, that's great, man.
He's not dealing with somebody who's just, you know, a wannabe.
Yeah.
And,
that's great, man. That's great. So this has been Chris Foster, musician in Kansas City. We will, of course, be back with more talks with a whole bunch of other people about a whole bunch of different kinds of things on KC Music Talk. So, Chris, thanks for doing the interview.
Thank you, Rob.
Man.
Appreciate it. And good luck to everybody out there.
Yeah. We all definitely need it, but I definitely wanted to say that it was really a privilege to get to do your gig the other day for 25 years in the music business. Now that's a cool accomplishment. Anyway, there you go.
I'm going to hire you for my 50th.
Oh, there you go. Thanks.
You got a gig in 25 years.
Great. I'll put it on my calendar. But all right, guys, that's the show. Get the heck out of here. All right, see ya.